I've been wanting to do this video for a while, and honestly, I think it is going to be a kickstart to kind of uh, let's loosely call it a series of videos. It's actually quite an undertaking, and it's probably not something that we're going to make like a consistent, scheduled series out of, but something that we do intermittently. But I think it is important to understand that the martial arts world is absolutely full of logical fallacies and like these, for lack of a better term, cognitive biases that cloud our ability to actually get to, let's call it the truth. It's a dangerous word, right? But the idea then is that we have to be able to identify where our logic goes wrong. So first and foremost, logic is a tool to organize the evidence that we have and to try to create a logical order and to potentially fill in some gaps, between steps of logic. And unfortunately, because we are essentially still working with our caveman hardware, we are very, very underpowered computers, and we are very, very prone to all sorts of biases and all sorts of fallacies. And some of these stem from just ignorance of data, for sure. And then some of them are more on the emotional side of things, where it's no longer ignorance, but simply the fact that a deeply held belief cannot be overcome by the data for whatever emotional reason that actually makes you feel like you've got things put together, right? And so the one that I want to start with, and I think this is the most important one to start with when it's concerning martial arts, is it's actually a pair of them. And we're going to be talking about the appeal to tradition and the appeal to novelty. Now, here's the thing, right? And I'll give you some links, to go look up the formal definitions and everything. There is a difference between formal logic and informal logic, and most fallacies that people cite are part of informal logic. We're not going to get into that. That's not particularly important here, what we're looking at. And understand that just because something can be a fallacy doesn't necessarily mean that the person is wrong. And in fact, identifying fallacies is not a valid way to win an argument either. So there's all sorts of like catch-22 things within logic, where basically like calling bullshit on other people's logic doesn't actually make you more logical than them and does not add any validity to your argument. But we're going to start with the appeal to tradition, because a lot of people are really stuck on this idea of, if it has been around for so many generations, then it must be good. And the fact is that something being around for many, many generations, and we see this in the evolutionary processes, looking at things like, say, crocodiles and turtles, things that have had very, very little change over generations, over the eons, is basically saying that they found something that worked according to their environmental pressures, and no new data to challenge those adaptations has come along to force them to change, and therefore what they're doing is working, right? And so in general, the idea of tradition always goes back to this stability idea of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And there's nothing wrong with that inherently, but it can stifle progress. Sometimes just because something does work doesn't mean it's the most efficient version or the best version of doing something. And so you really can't say that because something is older, that it is more valid, that it is more honest, that it is more true, or anything like that. That's just simply, it's not a valid argument. And the fact is that there's a lot of reasons why any martial arts system may go untested for generations and generations and not actually be forced to adapt. And we know that martial arts systems adapt over the ages, right? Even the things that we consider traditional change generation after generation after generation, and a lot of these changes are documented. So this concept of, well, this thing has been around forever, it's like, but has it been around unchanged? And the answer is usually no. And then, of course, the question is, well, how much has changed? What has changed, and to what effect, and for what reason, right? There's a lot that you have to get into there beyond just something is old, therefore it must be good, valid, whatever. On the other side of it, we have the appeal to novelty. And it's the same thing, that just because something is new, something is the product of new technology, because something is as yet undiscovered, right, and is brand new on the scene, there's a lot of reasons something new might pop up. And again, we're talking about, in the terms of martial arts, what we're talking about is oftentimes environmental pressures, right? Grappling used to look one way, now grappling looks a completely different way, and thus we must adapt to the new grappling. That kind of thing, right? If you look at, say, I'm not a BJJ guy, but if you look at competitive BJJ, it is not the same as it was 10 years ago. It's not the same as it was 20 years ago. It's not the same as it was 40 years ago, right? It keeps changing because competition keeps changing, and the nature of competition is people keep trying to beat whatever the most successful thing is. And trying to beat the most successful thing means that innovations are going to come around, things that were once forgotten are going to come back around, and those kind of things happen over and over and over again. So, one, in the world of martial arts, oftentimes, pretty much all the time, nothing is really new. We find example after example after example of things being quite old. And they just fell out of favor for whatever reason, and that's fine. But the fact is that, again, just like something being old, something being new, something being the product of new technology, new understanding, even new science, does not necessarily make it more valid. We find over and over and over again, studies get overturned. How many times have we seen the debate on eggs and cholesterol flip-flop, right? Now, at this point, we're pretty sure, but then we were pretty sure before. So, you never really know. And it's, sometimes things are very, very, for lack of a better term, local or contextual. In fact, I would say in the world of martial arts, almost everything is contextual. Because what works against one opponent may not work against the next, because those are two very different people with two different backgrounds. I mean, even if they came from the same school, they're two different people with two different mindsets. They're going to be different. And that means that, like, you can't use the exact same blueprint as the other guy. You might be able to use the same framework, but fleshing out that frame is going to look different, right? And so the idea of something being new is also not actually particularly enlightening as to the quality or the truth, the veracity of the thing, right? And so what we have to look at here, I'm going to go ahead and write this down just so you don't have to sit there and worry about the specific names of the fallacies and all that, is age does not equal quality. That's it. Age does not equal quality in either direction. Age can't tell you much of anything about the quality of something. It's not capable. There's not enough information in that to actually tell you about something. So with that said, I think we'll go ahead and wrap this video up here. There are a ton more fallacies and all sorts of very, very interesting biases that have to get, worked through in research and whatnot that we need to address, and we will do that in future videos. Like I said, I'm not going to put those on a schedule. They'll just kind of come out organically as things come up and as we have time in the filming schedule and all that. But it's an important thing to talk about. Definitely needs to be talked about. So we're talking about it, and I will talk to you guys later. Good journey. Hey, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share, do all the other social media stuff. You can check out our other socials, as well as take a look at some of the merchandise that we have for offer in the links below. And if you happen to be in the Phoenix metro area, stop in, come in for a class, come in just to say hi. We'd love to meet you. Until next time, good journey.